DoctorBenjy's Premier League post-mortem. I can't call it that. I'm really trying to lose the whole doctor thing. The checkup. Right, names without that. Because at the moment, we're calling it the look back, aren't we? Chris, put a Premier League logo about that. The look, that's what it is at the moment. Match week 3, how we doing? Let's talk about it. So it was an interesting weekend of action once again. We had some winners and losers, as we tend to do in football matches. Arsenal, arguably the big winners, as we bring up the results of the weekend. Chelsea, disappointing, of course. We're going to talk about it. And what a draw it was at St James's Park as well. Shout out to Southampton and Fulham for some brilliant wins too. But let's talk about all of them. Let's delve in and start in chronological order with the first game of the weekend. We start then at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. That's like calling this series the look back. Come up with a better name. And for Tottenham, it was a very similar vibe to the feeling that they had against Chelsea, really. Wolves set up in a very similar way to Chelsea. I was watching it thinking, why doesn't Ruben Neves play for Chelsea? He seems like the perfect player for them to go for. We've been looking at Frankie de Jong recently, who is similar, I would say, but yeah, Ruben Neves played fantastic for Wolves and found it really easy to control a Tottenham team in the same ways that Chelsea did. And this is a worrying theme for Conte, right? That front three, the Son, Kulusevski, Kane threesome, can't seem to get enough of the ball towards them. And when it is played up towards them, they seem a little bit isolated at times. They don't seem well connected. And for a three that were playing so well last season together, especially in the second half of the season, and obviously Son and Kane have had this for years now, that's becoming a real issue for Conte. He tried to change things up a little bit, right? He moves the central two of Højbjerg and Bentancur, playing them slightly further forward to aid sort of the press and basically get everybody forward. It allows the centre-back to step out occasionally as well. Because when they play quite deep and defensively, one, they struggle to break the lines that teams are picking up against them. Sometimes it's like an equal midfield 2. In Wolves' case, it was a 3 that sort of stuck in there and made it difficult. And Wolves were able to do this without a central striker, without someone really looking to be the guy to go to. Right, Jimenez came on later in the game and had little impact, it must be said. But it's a really impressive Wolves performance up until the point that the halftime whistle blew. And that was when Conte basically said to everyone, be braver, be more aggressive. And the big difference from game one and game 2, as it was a game of 2 hours, viewers. It's a classic football manager football phrase, was Harry Kane. Harry Kane had very few chances. I made a note of it. From first half to second half, Harry Kane had double the amount of touches, double the amount of passes, was far, far more involved. Of course, the goal doesn't necessarily come from that. They've definitely been working on set pieces. I mean, fair enough. It's a great corner from Perisic, a really good header from Kane as well. But the worry for me, for Tottenham, is that, again, when they face sides that are more clinical and have a bit more of an end product and a bit more of an idea of how to play, I've said for a few weeks now, Wolves seemingly miss that central striker. And Jimenez, again, he's just come back into the side. Maybe it'll take him a little bit of time, but they definitely need someone up there. And had he been there, you might have said that Wolves would have been 2 up, maybe, before they even get to the point of Tottenham stepping things up. It was better from Tottenham, though. Again, a similar thing that happened against Chelsea as well, where they didn't have the best of the game, but they come away with it with, on this occasion, all 3 points rather than just the point at Stamford Bridge. And it felt more deserved this time. Again, the willingness to switch it around a little bit without really having to change any personnel. It didn't come from substitutions. It just came from Conte clearly saying to them, be a little braver, press them, push up. We can afford to do it. They finally took advantage of the fact that Wolves weren't playing that central striker, and it got them the win in the end. And Kane added another milestone to his already glowing Premier League record. We move next to Crystal Palace versus Aston Villa. We could talk forever about this game. It really is the tale of two managers. It's Patrick Vieira versus Steven Gerrard, another midfield battle. It feels like these are going to happen every single week at the moment. But it's a team that looks settled in knowing what they are against a team that look a little bit lost. And it was obvious by the result which way this goes. Wilfried Zaha will no doubt come out of this game with a lot of credit, but it was also Ebere Eze just behind him was in phenomenal form. That side in particular was causing Aston Villa so many issues. It was unbelievable. Like, those two players on their own made the lives of Leon Bailey, John McGinn and Matty Cash an absolute disaster, whether it be pressing from the front or simply they were scared, is how it looked actually. Like, for the first time this season, Villa were in control of the game against Everton, it felt like, but it was still quite passive. In this game, there was no room to be passive. Crystal Palace were taking it to Aston Villa and doing it in a really effective way. And as I said before, it just looks like a team that know their roles. They know the assignment. They know their strengths and their weaknesses, and they play to those. And knowing that this early in the season always says to me that they're going to have a really good year. There's a lot to be excited about from a Palace fan's perspective, and they've got players off the bench that you're not like Like, Ulysses barely featured this season, it feels like. And he's another one that when he comes in, you're going to see a different element to the way that Crystal Palace can play and cause so many teams different problems. You would expect them to be a little bit more one-dimensional because Wilfred Zaha has often been the guy. I think he's always relatively inconsistent. I think that's one of the reasons he's not got that major move, as well as Palace's willingness to hold on to him as well and want him to be the guy. And he's kind of just sort of accepted that now. And under Patrick Vieira, there's clearly a man there at the top that he respects and wants to play for. And again, getting us a couple of goals. Yes, he misses the penalty, but again, a decent finish for the second one. The first goal is phenomenal. Like, picks it up on the halfway line, basically, runs all the way. It was. Nah, this might be a bit kind. It was Thierry Henry versus Real Madrid many moons ago. Yeah, it was a really nice finish. And then to seal it as well, Mateta towards the end of the game, really good. And you forget, really, that Aston Villa scored first in this game. And one of the biggest issues for me, there's already like Villa fans across online platforms, it maybe should be noted, which is a representation of Villa fans generally, are calling for Gerrard's head pretty early. I'm sure there's not every Villa fan doing that, and it seems a little bit quick to be asking any manager at this point to be getting the sack. But the biggest mistake Steven Gerrard has potentially made this season for me, from the early games that I've seen, I've watched every Villa game for some reason, is John McGinn being made captain potentially makes him undroppable. You'd hope not, because he's not played particularly well this season. His ball retention's quite poor. His pressing seems a little bit loose. He doesn't look comfortable right now. I don't know if it is the extra pressure of being captain, maybe, but I said that side of the pitch really struggled. He's finding that difficult. Look, they're getting Sarr in. Ismail Sarr's coming in from Watford. That might be the thing that forces Gerrard to maybe drop McGinn. If you're going to play Kamara and Ramsey as a midfield too, or even bring somebody else in, there might be some other options in there. Maybe Douglas Luiz comes back in, or you drop Coutinho slightly deeper. But John McGinn might actually be the man to step away. And while I think he's probably loved by Villa fans, right, he's had some really good years for them, this season under Gerrard, he's not quite clicking. And for whatever reason, Villa have to figure this out. I said last week, go get a winger. Like, that's what you're missing right now. And they brought Leon Bailey back into the side, and Buendia started. And there were periods where they looked okay, but generally speaking, they haven't got. Whereas Palace looked like they had the exact idea how to do things, Aston Villa didn't, and they need to find that quick, because Villa fans are already calling for Poch. We'll leave that there. Okay, let's go to Goodison Park, where it was Everton 1, Nottingham Forest 1. And I feel like every team, there's been quite a few of these this year. Every time there's a draw, I feel like both teams come out of it not too disgruntled. Everton will be pleased with a point because they need the point. And Forest will go away to Everton and come away with the point and think, you know what, that ain't too bad. It was nice for Forest, really, to take a break from making transfers to play some actual football. Huge respect for that. It's about time they, got back to business. The other business. And this game was a game of three parts, really. In the early stages, Everton dominant. For a large portion of the game, Forest were on top, really did dominate the ball. Looked really good with it as well, actually. They played some lovely stuff. For a team that have been together, they brought a lot of players in. They had to bring a lot of players in. For a team that haven't spent that long together, there's a real connection and vibe, and Keeper's got them playing some really nice stuff already. And then towards the latter parts of the game, typical of a home side, really, that need a goal. As Everton pushed for it, Forest scored, but then it was still Everton that carried the momentum forward. And let's talk about both goals. Lots of shots from long, lots of shots from distance from both teams, actually. And it was Forest's goal, of course, came from a shot that Yates shoots from the edge of the box. It's rebounded. It's so bad from Pickford, by the way. Like, he's got away with it a little bit because he's got the assist just after this. But the parry that he plays out, not good. Brennan Johnson there to fire it in. And then you don't see this goal very often. It was England 2010 when Neuer did it over a sort of Matthew Upson. Forward it goes. You don't see it at Premier League level because it's really bad defending. Pickford plays a good, but we'll give Pickford the credit. It's a great ball to Damari Gray, whose finish is sublime. He looks like one of the decent players in that side. Him and Iwobi, I think, have been the best performers so far. They started with Rondon in this game. It didn't really matter. I'm not sure that Rondon is the guy. It definitely allowed Gray and Gordon to have a bit more play and be a little bit more involved and be sort of doing what they're best at with that central focus. But Rondon himself doesn't look quite it. He had one decent effort, but apart from that, he's not it. They miss Calvert-Lewin, and again, bringing someone in to be more like Calvert-Lewin, and by that I sort of be more mobile, if anything, that might be the solution for them. As far as Forest go, like, it's a good point. It's one of those games where they're going to have lots of these, it feels like, and making sure you don't lose them for newly promoted sides feels like the key. But again, they're making so many additions, so many signings that they should be fine. Like, the players they've brought in, there's some really quality additions there. They should be all right. And again, this is a good point for them. What are Fulham doing? What are Fulham doing? I love it. I love seeing a newly promoted side come up and be fearless. And Fulham are fearless. They know they're not going to... Basically, it's a different Fulham side. There was a Fulham side before that came up that felt like, under Parker, and we'll talk about Scott Parker soon, tried to control games and be in control of everything, and that works in the Championship when you've got more quality. It doesn't work so well in the Premier League. And Fulham have realised this right now. It's a new wave over at Fulham. They've basically decided we are going to concede, but let's make sure that offensively we are a problem. And I love that. I love that from Forest. I love that from Fulham. And you've seen it with arguably the team last season that they were up against this weekend in Brentford as well, coming off that fantastic win against Manchester United. Couldn't replicate it against Fulham, and Fulham made it difficult. Like, there's some really nice things. I'll say there's some really nice things. I've just been reminded there. I looked at my notes and I thought, yeah, the first goal, that wasn't really nice. Just pinball. Like, love a pinball goal at any point in a football match. Chaotic scenes. Finds its way in. Brentford is so stereotypical. Brentford looked like a team that had a really good performance, and the high of that just couldn't be matched again. But it also sort of exposed in Brentford, and this is a bit of an indictment to United, that if you attack Brentford, they're actually not that brilliant at defending. And they are, conversely, pretty good going forward. Tony scored a nice goal, could have had another one. Very, very close VAR decision for that one. But it's that man again, Mitrovic. Like, he's the guy that gets goals in big moments, it seems, this season. And it's a brilliant header at the back post. But as much as I want to rave about Mitrovic, Andreas Pereira is the beating heart of that Fulham team, and everyone trusts him. He's come in without an ego, it seems. He's just decided, you know what, I'll work for you and you work for me, and it's going to be beautiful. And so far, again, Mitrovic is going to get the plaudits and the headlines, and Polina, who plays just behind as well, has been fantastic and got himself a goal this weekend. But Andreas Pereira is the man to stop if you're coming up against Fulham this season, and Brentford couldn't. And it was the story of the whole game, really. It's a really well-deserved point for Fulham. They're going to be loving this. Like, I can't quite believe it. I think most people will have had Fulham to go down, and they've already put themselves in a pretty good position only a few games in. They're ahead. As far as the points per game goes, they're already well ahead of that. They're unbeaten. They could go invincible. Let's move on. Oh, Leicester. It was the red of Southampton against the blue of Leicester. There's a cheese reference in there somewhere, if you can find it. And they won't... It's a classic game for a team that are struggling. For those that caught any of this, and I was watching it alongside a couple of other games over the weekend, it's the classic sort of game where a team is dominant for an hour, and then until another team score. James Maddison scores a wonderful goal, lovely free kick, right? And he must be looking around thinking, I need some help here. And as he turns around, as he takes part in the look back, and he sees Wesley Fofana evaporate, that's got to be worrying. And as he looks on the other side, you might be seeing Yuri Tielemans disappear, and that's a big worry for me, because Leicester look like a team now that the spine of the team is disappearing, and James Maddison is the guy. It wasn't just his free kick, his general play, set pieces. Like, he is the most threatening part of any Leicester team right now, and part of that is and Southampton fans, I'll get there. Part of that is that Jamie Vardy, and I did some digging into Vardy because I'm fascinated by him as a Premier League player generally. But I got some data on Vardy then. So Vardy's last goal versus a Premier League side, a current Premier League side, that's the important bit, was the last game of last season against Southampton. But before that, and this is the bit that's important for me, was October, where he scored against Manchester United in the middle of October last season. Now, and you might argue, well, you can only score against what's in front of you. He scored 7 goals against Burnley, Watford and Norwich. But that leaves a lot of teams that he's been largely ineffective by. He's not a man that grabs a lot of assists. It's not part of his game, really. And if he's not scoring, that becomes a problem. So far for the season for Leicester, he's featured in all 3 games. He started a couple of them. He's got 1 shot in 3 games. Now, at home to Southampton, that's the type of game Jamie Vardy should be saying, get me chances, let me have opportunities. And for as good as James Maddison is, Jamie Vardy is off the ball right now, and there's a big decision for Rodgers, not just in who he's going to replace Fofana with and potentially Tielemans with, is will he spend some of that money on a striker, or Will he give Patson Daka a chance? Because that's, in my opinion, what he should be doing. Jamie Vardy's 35 now. There's a strong argument to say it shouldn't be his job at this point with the type of striker Vardy is to be the goal getter at Leicester, but he is Leicester, isn't he? That's maybe the problem for Rodgers. And it'd be a big decision to drop him, but there's not enough goals going in against sides that aren't relegation hit, basically. Like Watford and Norwich weren't good last season. Burnley had all sorts of issues, both with and without Sean Dyche. And Vardy capitalised on those. Again, 7 goals against those teams is no disgrace. And again, you might say, well, he scored loads of goals. But again, you can see the point I'm making against some of the other sides, especially the sides that Leicester want to be competing with. He's no longer a difference maker, and that's a problem. Anyway, on the other side of it, Che Adams has got 2 goals and should have had 3. Hit the post as well with a really good chance. They're doing a bit of a Fulham. Like, no one thought. I think most people had Southampton to go down. There was a lot of questionable additions. Not that they were bad additions, just question mark additions is probably a better way of putting it. And Che Adams is a man that's already there, was given the task really of taking over Danny Ings once he went to Aston Villa. And he's doing it. Aribo started as well. Like, he looks like a really constant threat. But it's as soon as the goal, talking of just the game, as soon as the goal goes in, the game just totally swings in Southampton's favour, and suddenly they look more likely to go on and win it. And they do. The cross from James Ward-Prowse for the goal for Che Adams. It's like a scissor kick volley type goal. But the cross from Ward-Prowse, it wasn't a set piece. It was just laid back to him. But it's so good. Man, if they can get Che Adams scoring over 10 goals this year, and again, keeping James Ward-Prowse fit seems like an inevitable thing for them to do if they're going to succeed this season, then they're not going to go down if they keep playing like that, especially away from home against teams like Leicester, who they've maybe taken advantage of an early season Leicester. But fair play, great work. All right, we come to Bournemouth versus Arsenal. It's not really fair for Bournemouth at the moment. Just played Manchester City. Now they have to play Manchester City B, which is Arsenal, which is disrespectful, but Arsenal fans, don't worry. You are so good. Like, how pleasing is this for Arsenal fans? I've really enjoyed All or Nothing as well. Like, Mikel Arteta comes across really well in that, I think. And it allows Arsenal fans to see what the plan and the processes are at that football club. What a coup Gabriel Jesus has been, by the way, to get him to drop down to Europa League football, because he looks like a Champions League level player right now. I think all Arsenal fans would agree with that. What an addition. And you've got 3 players there in Martinelli, in Odegaard, and in Jesus that are just enablers, not just for themselves, but for each other. And that's so exciting. And Saka has sort of become the forgotten man to a degree. Like, he was pretty quiet in this game. He's had a relatively quiet season so far, actually, but he just offers them a really nice balance, and that's what they've got at the moment. Balance with problem causing all over the place. Odegaard gets 2 goals in the game. Jesus, a constant problem. And William Saliba, yeah, his goal was good. I love that the Zinchenko's reaction to the goal is fantastic. Anytime, I don't know how you feel as a professional footballer, but when you score, your teammates and manager are like, he's never done that before. He doesn't even do that in training. This is so surprising. That must be a bit. But as Saliba, you're like, I want to remember that forever. You're making it seem like it will never happen again. Which it probably won't. The thing I want to talk about him, and I avoided talking about him in week 1 when he was pretty good, and then he scores an own goal week 2, and I think, well, fair enough. 100% pass completion. Yeah, there was other data out there as well. It was a phenomenal performance, and actually the whole of the Arsenal boys were brilliant. Ben White, 95% pass completion. Gabriel, 93% pass completion. It's a beautifully successful brand of football if Arsenal carry on like this. We just all need to see them tested against a side that ordinarily finishes above them. But the little run they've got before they play Tottenham, it looks pretty winnable for Arsenal right now. And they're playing some wonderful, wonderful things. Some things? Football, primarily. Over the other side of this, I'm not very happy with Scott Parker, who has just watched his team play. All he has to do is watch Arsenal play this season, and you'll figure this out, Scott. You just watched your Bournemouth team play against Manchester City, have very little of the ball, find it very, very difficult to cause them problems. We've seen that is possible now. And you've gone into the game against Arsenal for that first half, and you've set up to do the exact same thing, the same ineffective things against Arsenal that you did against Manchester City. And the game was over within half an hour. And Scott Parker, post-match, is saying that he didn't really see the type of football he wanted to see from a Bournemouth team. And they're better than that. And I'm thinking, this is on you, mate. When you're playing 3 sort of defensive midfielders, almost flat to a degree, but at the same time sort of having Billing upside alongside Kiefer Moore. And I kind of get it. You're trying to give the same options that Solanke give, but it's so different, right? Solanke's ability to run channels and to finish chances is far above anything Billing's going to do. And Kiefer Moore is doing pretty well considering how little he's been given to work off. But yeah, the changing system was far better. Just applying some pressure to Arsenal, who arguably took their foot off the gas a little bit because the game was won and they were able to play some pretty stuff. But Bournemouth were able to affect the game far better in the second half by just being a little bit more aggressive. They changed from a 5 to a 4 at the back, and that just gave them that extra man to disrupt and change things. And basically, you're trusting the players on the pitch a little bit to defend, to keep out chances. And Bournemouth did that pretty successfully. And hopefully Parker takes this as a bit of a lesson, really, that... And you're seeing other sides, and I mentioned Fulham before, right, who are brave enough to play away, which they know will be more successful, or at least give them chances in games. When Bournemouth set up like that against City and against Arsenal, and don't get me wrong, they're two of the best teams in the league, you're asking for it. So you can have very little sympathy for them in that respect. But overall, Arsenal are fantastic. They look like contenders for a league title right now, but we are 3 games in, and we've not seen them face anyone really good yet. Palace were a decent side, but really good yet, and we're excited to see how that goes. And Gabriel Jesus and Odegaard and Martinelli have been in my fantasy team for 2 weeks, and I'm enjoying that. All right, before we get to Sunday's games, if you're enjoying this video and you want to see some more, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Please do like the video as well and get in there your winners and losers of the weekend. We'll talk about mine at the end of the video. You can probably figure out a few already. But thank you for all the support on the series. Welcome to the look back. We can't call it the look back, can we? Are we? We are at the moment. Let us then go to Ellen Road and Leeds United 3, Chelsea FC 0. They didn't even deserve 0, viewers. What a weirdly, it feels like up and down season so far for Chelsea, despite the fact that they've won a game. I guess in a way it is up and down. They've won, drawn, and now they've lost, and deservedly so. We're going to start with Chelsea, actually. It doesn't matter how well you set up and play tactically if Mendy decides to be a libero for 5 minutes, or not even that. It didn't even need to be that, did it? For 3 seconds. Just previous to that, he looked really confident on the ball. He took it to the left side. He got away from an oncoming attacker, and it looked quite composed. But when it doesn't work, it looks dreadful. And to be honest, it'd be easy to go after Mendy and say that that goal was then the catalyst for Leeds to go on and play some really nice stuff. But actually, it's a bit unfair to just go at Mendy, because Kai Havertz is an absolute waste of space at the moment. Like, for the player that he is and the player that he potentially can still be, and it's still young enough in his career that he can go on and be more than he is right now, he's not the guy to be your focal point in attacks, right? And I get they're playing sort of him and Sterling and Mount in and around, and for how effective they were. This is the most frustrating thing from Tuchel's perspective, I imagine, for how successful those 3 players were against Tottenham. They were so poor against Leeds, and Leeds forced this to a degree because of how hard they work, and we'll come to that in a moment. But Chelsea are missing, and it's so obvious, and they are going to have to get one, I think. And because there isn't one, they end up having to get 2. They need to recall Tammy Abraham from his loan. It was a sale. Oh, for heaven's sake. They'd be better off with Diego Costa. They need a central point right now. If you look at a Chelsea heat map, there is a massive gap right now, and it's in the central areas. And a focal point is so needed at Chelsea. It's not Romelu Lukaku, and Werner's gone, but there needs to be someone, and that Chelsea team need to identify who that is. If that's Aubameyang, which on a lot of levels makes sense to me because of his work rate, because of how he's probably going to be finishing chances that some of those Chelsea players aren't capable of doing at the moment, they need to find someone. And the Aubameyang link seems to have gone cold. Someone put it back in the oven, because that's the one that, for me, probably needs to happen. Although 30 million for a 33-year-old is a lot of money. Now, Leeds fans, hello. Marching on together, are you? I've got a bit of Leeds blood in me, so I can appreciate this. What a performance. Ellen Road rocking. It was so good. It was such a good performance. And Jesse Marsh deserves a lot of credit, as do the Leeds board, by the way. And we should talk about this, because when that point was made, the Ted Lasso conversation started happening. And yeah, when he's on the touchline, he looks very excited. I kind of want him in one of those NFL headpieces where he can talk to his team. I'd love him to be able to communicate with Jack Harrison via that. That'd be amazing. I'd like to think that Bilzer would be on one of the lines as well. He's got sort of a few buttons he can press. But no, the board deserve a lot of credit for identifying that Jesse Marsh was the man to take this Leeds team from Bilzer and continue the great work that he did at Leeds. When at a point when that team needed refreshing, Leeds looked like a similar side that they had under Bilzer, but with smarter energy, I want to call it. It all looks a little bit more considered at this point in time. And yeah, what the most surprising bit is that Rodrigo looks like a really good player, where he's looked a little bit part before. They've made him the captain. strange, and made it all about him. And I don't know, to be fair, Leeds fans, I've not researched it. I don't know if he's the full-time captain or if he was captain for this game, but he looks like he's loving it. And you kind of got to respect it. It makes the point against Wolves look really good, and the momentum they can carry into this game as a result of that. Again, very comforting for them, but what a performance. Hurried and harassed, loads of words beginning with H. Chelsea at every opportunity, didn't give them a moment to settle into the game at all, were able to break it up when they needed to, were pressing brilliantly. Like Aronson, the goal that they get against Mendy, by the way, epitomises everything good about Leeds United under Jesse Marsch, is that it's that willingness to try and willingness to make things happen that are forcing these opportunities. Dan James looks at home in that side as well in the moments that he has. And I mentioned Rodrigo. Jack Harrison looks a bargain at the moment for the price they've paid for him. It's a real, I know they've had him on loan as well, but it's such a great team and such an exciting time for Leeds fans after a season last year that was a bit of a struggle. But if they keep playing like this, they're probably not gonna get into the top European places, but they're gonna provide a really lovely time for all of us. So if you're not appreciating Leeds right now, you're either a Chelsea fan, a Manchester United fan, a Bradford fan, maybe a Liverpool fan actually, thinking about it, Arsenal as well. I can understand, but the football they play is really good to watch. And for Chelsea, so easy to defend against when you haven't got a striker who's probing and doing stuff. They need a fix quickly. I'll do it. I'll play up front. All I've got to do is sort of through balls to Havertz and Sterling. I could do that. Viewers. Are West Ham United in crisis? Well, no, but to quote David Moyes from last week, they need more goals, they need better defending, and to be better. Well, I couldn't agree more with him. There's two ways to look at this from a West Ham perspective. Do you either want the European games because they'll be a little bit easier and you might be able to gain some confidence and momentum from those, or is that going to be the worst thing that could possibly happen when you consider this squad? They've not made loads of additions. They don't look overly comfortable with each other right now. Like they look fine, and against teams that are in form and playing better, like Brighton, fine ain't enough, especially at home to a Brighton side that we've talked about them before, and we're going to keep talking about them this season. It feels like are well drilled, the understanding. There's a few teams like this that have kept the consistency with either management or players that are now seeing all of the benefits from that, especially as teams are changing and doing different things, and are going to have some maybe really surprising seasons. There's going to be a couple of teams this year that are going to make people's predictions look really good, and this is one of those teams with Brighton. From the West Ham perspective, Scamacca didn't start again. Like, I don't know what they're waiting for, really. It seems like the obvious decision to make. Yes, they give away a cheap penalty, which you don't want to be seeing, especially when it's a new player doing it right. And to see Trossard and Gross, again, be sort of the pivotal points of every Brighton attack, and Danny Welbeck playing his part as well. Brighton look like a team that are, again, super comfortable. And Graham Potter's going to get a lot of credit. The scariest thing for Brighton is going to be that there's going to be some teams, you would imagine, that are going to be losing managers quite soon, and keeping a hold of Graham Potter might be everything to that Brighton team. Unless Leeds is bored to make the appointment, then you never know. But I mentioned it last week, and I'm going to bring it up again in a minute. You can see why. But the momentum of just drawing against a good Newcastle team means that you don't feel like you're taking a step back to go forwards. You just, rather than going up though, you just sort of straight lining, going up. And that's a really positive thing for Brighton, who many people again thought with the luck of Cucurella and the luck of Basima, this was going to be a difficult year. Shove it in my face. Absolutely not. They look great. It's a pretty even game. Like if you just look at the stats of the game, you think, do you know what? Either team could have won this. But if you're Brighton, the confidence you've got at the moment, you know you're going to win it. And if you're West Ham, you're worried. All right, let's cap things off with the game of the weekend. You've got to say, it's one to remember this season. Newcastle United 3, Manchester City 3. There's so many moments. Where do we start? So City go 1-0 up, and you're thinking, oh, this could be 6. And that was my first thought. I thought, oh God, this is. I think I was in a group chat with some of my friends. It was just like, oh, I hate them. They're so boring. And then someone pressed the on button for Newcastle United, and that was cool. St Maximin, fantastic. Callum Wilson running channels like nobody's business. The midfield, been pretty controlled and considered. Joe Linton and Gamara's actually had a really good midfield. I mentioned, or a really good time in midfield. I mentioned last week that his influence on the game was really lacking from the first week to the second when Brighton made it really difficult. And City, obviously, have a lot more of the ball and do similar things, but he was a lot more effective with his possession this time around, whether that be playing balls down channels for someone like Saint-Maximin to chase, also Almiron on the other side as well. It was a really considered and defensively solid performance from Newcastle that gave them the platform to be brave. And Fortress St James's Park, we mentioned it before, Eddie Howe has lost 2 home games as manager of Newcastle United since he took over. That was Liverpool and City last year, and the run continues. We'll keep an eye on it as the season goes by. But no, it's brilliant. And one man that definitely deserves some credit from this, and I know as much as I think Guimaraes is fantastic and Saint-Maximin had a really good game too, Nick Pope is winning points on his own for Newcastle right now. Another really good performance. And with the World Cup around the corner, he's on the plane. Just where does he get to sit on the plane? Up the front or near the back? It's not a cinema, so again, he's quite tall. That'd be annoying. But yeah, he's definitely like, is he the informed goalkeeper? Like, is he going to wrestle it off Pickford? Is Ramsdale in? I mean, the choices England have got out of nowhere. For City to be 3-1 down after a stunning Trippier free kick, by the way, such a wonderful, wonderful free kick. It was, I think every England fan watched that and thought, oh, that was I was like, oh, remember that? That'll be soon, won't it? Oh, Trent's gonna put Reece James. Who knows? Probably not Trippier. Like, it feels harsh, but definitely get him on though. They've got bigger squads this year. Take him just for that one moment. There's that point again with City. There's this sort of inevitability about them that when they score the second, you know the third's coming. And when they score the third, you know the fourth's coming. And the fifth, but they didn't. And Newcastle just dug in basically and held on, made some really good tactical fouls, one of which was a red and then not a red, by the Aussie ref, who's called Jared Gillet or Gillett, but I prefer Jared Gillet. If that's his name or not, I don't know. But you did wonder, like, Manchester City were in crisis there for about 10 minutes, whereas their Mancunian friends a little bit longer. We'll just say a little bit longer. People keep saying you're obsessed with Manchester United. What's going on there? Why does everyone keep talking about them? 1, it's funny. 2, it's terrible. 3, they're one of the biggest teams in the world, and it's fascinating. And I'm going to continue so much so that tomorrow there'll be a Liverpool Manchester United special extra video. I know. Be excited about it, please. As far as City are concerned, it wasn't the most dominant performance this season. It was a game where they were frustrated by Newcastle's pressing and ability to maybe just disrupt the flow of what City are used to. And in forward areas, we had a similar situation with Haaland, who was slightly more involved. Like, it was a bit more of a physical battle for him this time around. But there still seems to be a little bit of a disconnect between what City are used to playing like and how Erling Haaland, and how you get the best out of Erling Haaland, essentially. And that's going to be the ongoing conversation. And at some point, he's going to score 6 goals in a game. And that's when I'll go, there it is. They figured it. Well done. When he scores that 2 headers, a bicycle kick, a volley, left foot, right foot, that'll be the game. I'll go, fair enough. He's clicked now. Because he will. Like, again, there's inevitability to it. Despite the fact he's had a pretty quiet game and they don't know how to play with him, still scored a goal, right? I told him last week, to be fair, I said, Erling, don't worry about it, mate. You will get a goal again this year. So don't panic. As much as that goal was good, the Kevin De Bruyne pass for Bernardo Silva, I mean, surely he's got like an extra eye or something. I don't know how it's wonderful. It's brilliant. It's such a good pass. It's like watching me play pro clubs. Like, it's a wonderful, wonderful pass. Ultimately, points dropped for City. Are they in crisis? No, they're not. Obviously not. They're obviously not in crisis. But a great point for Newcastle. An okay point for City. Like, again, when you're 3-1 down, you come out to draw. Even if you're Manchester City, you're happy with that. And a great game. So we all win in a way, don't we? What a great weekend of football. All right, it's time to come to my winners and losers of the week. Of course, do yours in the comment section down below as well. It's just tricky. It's always tricky, it feels like, because you never know how other people view this, right? But we'll go with the losers first. We'll start with my losers. Notable mentions to Mendy in the Chelsea goal. Obviously not great from him. West Ham generally are getting away with this, to be honest. In third place, I've got Scott Parker, who again complained that Bournemouth weren't good in the first half. And I think that was your fault, Scott. So you're third on the list. In second place, Steven Gerrard, who was already in the minds of some Villa fans being replaced by Mauricio Pochettino. Okay, and then anyone connected to Thomas Tuchel who has come off worse from the handshake with Conte, so you've got to worry about that. But yeah, lots of Chelsea players didn't play well. Thomas Tuchel's not had a good time there, and you've got to wonder at what point he's going to snap and leave Chelsea. And my prediction's going to be right. So yeah, again, if you're West Ham, you've got away with this. Let's keep it more positive. Let's talk about the winners. A couple of notable mentions. Haven't put Wilfred Zaha in the top 3. Haven't put Fulham or Southampton in the top 3. Although there's a representative for one of them in my top 3. In third place, speaking of which, Che Adams, 2 goals. He could be the guy. And let's face it, he's not going to be in this list again. So let him have this one. Yeah, a really good away win at Leicester, and he was the catalyst for that. Gets a little bit fortunate with some great movement for the first goal. The second is sublime. Well done to Che Adams. Congratulations. I hope Premier League players are watching this and waiting for this award. I really do. In second place, Jesse Marsh was seen as like a comedic character when he joined. Again, had these Ted Lasso accusations. It's a great show, actually. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with it. He's a very passionate man on the touchline and got Leeds playing some wonderful stuff this weekend. They really do care about what he's trying to get them to do, and that's obvious from the way they play on the pitch. So he gets in at number 2. And at number 1, I'm going for another manager. Can you think who it could be? Mikel Arteta. Right. It is influenced by the fact his drawings in All or Nothing are good. And I've watched that whole series, and I think he comes across really well. And I like him. And his hair, it's a bit Lego-esque, but it's good. And the football, no one's playing better right now in the Premier League, and the table suggests that as well. So Mikel Arteta is my winner, my big winner of the week. Well done to you, Mikel. I should send out awards. There we are then. That concludes our look at the Premier League this weekend. If you've enjoyed it, as mentioned before, do drop a like on it. I stream every single weekday on Twitch as well, twitch.tv/DoctorBenjy. There'll be a link to that in the description. Of course, come and follow me on Twitter and tell me to stop talking about Manchester United if you like. And I'll see you tomorrow for Liverpool versus Manchester United. The review. It's tonight. I hope it goes well for my mental health. We'll talk all things Nunes and Glazers and all that in that video. I've got some thoughts.